All right, here's where we're at. We've got the parts milled. So this is, let me do a little close up of the way these scale. Here's my hand, kind of get an idea. These are all of our parts. There's this sheet. I got some weird little transitions in them that I kind of just made up. Kind of how, pretend it's all like Mr. Geometry guy. And then, so there's these two. So there's two sheets of this. And this will make our two sculptures. Now, we've also got the base. There's two sheets of this. This is 1 inch here, so you can see how thick that is. And this is going to be quite thin because we're going to be cutting with a razor that and then cutting in this way. So this is going to be just barely under 1/2 inch. And one question I have is edge. There's a lot of motion, a lot of parts going on. I kind of feel like we should keep the edges kind of sublime, maybe matte, maybe like a matte bronze or a matte black. So that would mean we're painting this interior edge here matte bronze, let's say. And then after these are cut, these are matte bronze, just so that we've just kind of deleted the idea that the edges are decorative. I think that's kind of how I'm feeling about these. There's also the question of, we haven't really covered what color the interior is going to be. We had our samples we did in this super dark blue, but these could be bronze gold. They could be multiple colors. You could pour. You could do it in blue, and then you could pour a gold and let the gold drip all, and you twist it and spin it, and there's little crazy stuff going on in there. You can do whatever you want, but we haven't, gone into if we want these to be painterly or just very strict and sculptural. What else? Install wise, there is that question in the email about what we're going to do from the how they're constructed. Okay, so let me go over here. When we were talking about pinning them on, okay, so the pinning means that these parts here are lightweight and flexible, and we're just driving a pin through the styrofoam while the glue sets up. Then we come back with a little needle nose plier, pull all the pins out, nothing's there, magic, they're just on the wall. And if you needed to remove the piece, you would get some kind of a little, stainless steel pry bar, and you'd whittle the piece off the wall and separate them, and then you could, the base, this thing over here, you would just unscrew from the wall. So it's very lightweight, it's very fast and easy. There's no like wear, I don't know how, because basically you've got drywall screws just going straight into the wall here. There's nothing to it. You're just finding a spot and putting it in the wall so it's flat. And then these are pinned, and they kind of float around on that power grab, which I'll provide. And then we've got the urethane glue that really actually holds it there, and you just kind of set it. Now, that doesn't kind of ring the bell. These are, where's this camera? This is a micro screw. Well, it's a micro head screw. So what you would do instead is you would drill this through this part and through the styrofoam, and this would then make contact with the wall also. And you'd probably also use the power grab, but the power grab doesn't really stick to the styrofoam. It's kind of a non-stick relationship, so it'll just easily snap off over time. But then you'd have these screws, and the screw head, you can see, is just small enough that, let's say if you painted that black, or blue or whatever fits in, you could find spots like in here, and you just have this little color matched head in there, and you'd go here, you'd maybe hit it here, you'd just try to find some kind of formalism for why you're putting them. Maybe you always put them at the where the elbows are, or something like that. So that's an option too, and that's fully removable, because if you want to take it off, you just unscrew these guys, and then you unscrew that. So those are our two options. Well, there's two subjects. There's painting the edge. What do we want to do with the edges? And then what kind of install do we want to do with this? Because if we're going to use these, I'll probably put some kind of maybe a thin, rigid secondary layer to this. Maybe not. It may be unnecessary, but this you can't hit as often as you can glue. Glue can be like tiny dot, tiny dot, tiny dot, tiny dot, tiny dot, like that. This has to be more, well, less frequent, like here and then here. And you could have, over time, styrofoam can want to shrink and things, so you wouldn't have as, you'd want to kind of be able to figure out what your contact points are. And if you're going with a screw, you probably want something rigid on here. So there's that. And that would be a second layer. So you'd have this cut part. You'd have like a little 1/16 or an 1/8 inset part in there. You probably wouldn't see it much. And then this is a 1/2 inch inset or 0.6 inside of that. So you'd have three sets of inset. This part, your little rigid substrate, and then your base. That's it.